continuing Nocturnal November. Tonight we've got another special video for everybody. And this is one that I think, if you're in the world of thermal and you're up to speed, you've seen some of the conversations we've had about iRay products, specifically the MH25 and RH25, I think you're gonna find this interesting because these are two powerhouse units. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
Absolutely fair to say. So now, both the MH25 and RH25 have several areas where they overlap, but there's also some certain characteristics where they completely differ. And my objective in this video, and Ethan's objective in this video, is to answer some basic questions. We've already gone on the deep dive of both of these units. You can check out those videos on our YouTube channel. But our objective tonight is to just give a brief overview of both units so that if you're on the fence between the MH25 or RH25, we can help you, hopefully, to make the best decision for yourself. So Ethan, why don't we grab these units and let's dive into this. On my rifle, I have the RH25. On Ethan's helmet, he has the MH25. And Ethan, why don't you give a brief rundown of the strengths of the MH25?
The MH25 is great for being on a helmet, if that's one of the only couple things you're looking to do. The couple upgrades, not couple, there's one upgrade that I would highly recommend if you're helmet mounting the MH25 is the PVS 14 eyepiece. That gives you a big enough piece of glass to look through that when the helmet's bouncing around on your head or whatever you're doing, you have a bigger window to look through.
And you don't necessarily have to do that with the RH25.
The RH25 has a big enough eyepiece on it. You can function with that for sure.
So as far as strengths of that unit, just giving people a quick rundown, one or two bullet points, what would you say makes the MH25 stand out against all other options on the market?
It's helmet mountable, 640 core thermal imaging that when coupled with a battery pack can run for 16 to 20 hours straight. No glitches, nothing, it just runs. This unit I've had out one particular night, I fired it up at about 9 p.m. and I didn't shut it down till about 5:30 a.m. And it ran non-stop straight through the whole night. Not a single glitch, never powered it down, it just ran.
Another thing that I really like about the MH25 is the simplistic function. It is about as simple in a unit as you could possibly get with one knob.
Yep.
One knob to power on, go through the settings, make changes. There's a downside to some of that. Some of the menus and navigating through them are a little bit weird at first.
Once you pick up on it, you'll be fine.
It's super simple. So I think, you know, from my perspective, looking at the MH25, the strength that I see is absolute powerhouse, extremely lightweight, extremely compact, easy to use, extremely potent. It can fit in your pocket, go in your helmet.
Even if you didn't want to helmet mount it, this literally, I could make this thing disappear in my shirt pocket right now. And they're great for that. Yeah. Like literally, there it is, gone. You can't do that with many other thermals on the market that are 640 core.
Even the RH25, the size difference, it would fit, but it's bulkier. It's a little bit bulkier. So talking about, you know, giving this brief overview of the MH25, you talked about battery life. That's one of the negatives that I see with the MH25. One of the biggest negatives that I saw right out of the box running it on those couple sets we went on. I was changing that CR123 pretty much every single time.
Every hour.
Now, Ethan figured out how to run an external battery pack. We actually are going to have a video coming out specifically on that, so stay tuned. We're going to dive deep into that in another video. But he proved that with an external battery pack, you can get 16 hours plus runtime out of the MH25. What do you think the downsides of that particular unit would be?
Downsides right now, this guy doesn't record internally. A lot of people don't care about recording. A lot of people don't even want that option. Oh, if I could record what I'm doing, I'd just get in trouble. Yeah, you're probably right.
Or they think there's a premium price tag associated, which is funny because in this day and age, pretty much everything records at this point. what else would you say is a downside potentially, other than battery life, other than lack of recording? Are there any other downsides that you see with the MH?
The only other bigger downside that I would highlight with the MH25 in comparison to the RH25 is the screen that you're looking at. The screen that you're looking at is quite a bit smaller inside the unit than the RH25, and it makes it, I wouldn't say it's more difficult to look at. You don't have as big of an area that you're looking at, so it's not as nice. It is still 100% functional, as I've been running this thing for many, many hours at this point, and found and shot many, many coyotes and foxes and whatever else you can ever imagine.
So it's a powerhouse unit. It's one that people recognize. There are some nuances to how we mount this onto a helmet mount successfully to position it properly. Why don't you give them a 1-minute rundown of what you've got on the top of that unit so that you can mount that properly?
So one thing that I just discovered and within the last week or two, this is an offset dovetail adapter from Mod Armory. We have it on our site. You could grab it with the Mod Armory bridge. But the one thing that I learned right away is this adapter is actually set up to slide onto the mini rail that standardly comes on the MH25. Well, what I found was the holes in this particular mount that the set screws used to lock on the mini rail actually line up perfectly with the threaded holes in the housing on the MH25 itself.
Without the mini rail?
Without the mini rail. So what I actually did, and I actually think I have that mini rail in my pocket because I wanted to talk about it. It basically, I take the mini rail off, and as you can see, I have it in this baggie right here. And I take that mini rail off and I mount this dovetail adapter direct to the unit with what would you call that, a tapered head machine screw, basically. And there's a very specific thread pitch, so you don't miss the threads up.
We have them on hand.
I have them. If you buy this dovetail adapter for an MH25, I will be sending those screws along with, so you can do this.
That's just us having your back.
But what that does, all of this to say, to summarize this, when you have this unit clipped fast to the helmet, before we took that mini rail off, the MH25 was offset a little bit lower than the PVS 14 when you would couple them together.
Yep.
And now it's perfectly level. Everything's lined up 100%. It functions great. And I actually like it. It's more seamless to me that you have that dovetail right there on the unit. You can pop it off, run it in your pocket, then you can clip it right back into that bridge and run it together with a PVS 14 or standalone if you wanted to run it alone.
So looking at the MH25, we recognize that it's a powerhouse. We curate the optics on our website that we believe in. I want to clarify that. We don't just stock anything in our warehouse. We run things in the field, test them, put them through their paces, and then decide if they're worthy of being mounted on your gun or your helmet. So we're very particular about what we put onto that website. So that is a powerhouse. Now, when we look at the other option, which I have in my hand here, this is an RH25, and this is also a powerhouse. Now, I'm going to run through a couple of the pros that I've seen with this particular unit and a couple of the specs just to compare back and forth, just so people get a bird's eye view. Again, we have full-length videos on these units that we dive in depth. Definitely check those out. But when I'm giving you kind of a pros list of the RH25 is packed with an immense amount of features. And by that, I mean it can be handheld use, it can be helmet mounted with the pigtail adapter that I have bolted on the bottom. It can be forward clip-on mounted, which we found has worked. There's some nuances, and it would be only, in my opinion, you would use it in that scenario or that kind of configuration for certain tasks that are not like ultra long range precision shooting with a thermal. Or this can be used as a standalone thermal monocular on your weapon as well, and you would buy what's called the MQD mount for the RH25, and that's the RL25, correct?
Yeah.
Which is like the baby cousin lower resolution a little
Basically,
bit.
it's a 384 core. That's a 640 core. But I chose to dedicate this to 556 and run it for a little while.
Yep, and we're going to be talking about that particular unit in depth as well. So we looked at the MH25. There's a couple pieces that we always recommend people buy. It's the PVS14 eyepiece. It's that offset dovetail adapter, and there's machine screws that we include with that adapter. When you look at the RH25, there's two components that we think it would be kind of foolish to not get it with. And that can be seen as a downside with the RH25. You'd want to get the pigtail adapter so you have the ability to dovetail mount onto, say, a Mod Armory bridge or something similar. And then the MQD mount clips onto the pigtail adapter and allows you to mount to a Picatinny rail section. So the biggest downsides that I would see with the RH25 would be the fact that it's more expensive out of the gate. There are two accessories that add cost to your unit that you would need to purchase. But what you're gaining, in my opinion, with the RH25 over the MH25, right out of the box, you're getting better battery life. You're getting the ability to have a reticle in there. There is internal recording, which for Ethan is extremely important.
I like recording stuff.
So having the ability to do that, you can do that with the RH25 right out of the box with no extra add-ons. With the MH25, Ethan's running an external recorder, and you just don't get the quality out of that recorder that you're going to get out of the video coming out of the RH25. Inside the RH25, you also have that better screen. So when you're looking, whether it's helmet mounted or weapon mounted, it's a more seamless integration to your eye looking through the RH25, and the clarity's there. The other thing I'll say about the RH25 versus MH25 is the RH25, and actually, why don't you hold both the MH and the RH in your hand? Not the RL, but the MH25 next to each other. The RH25 is an aluminum housing, I believe. It feels more rugged than the MH25. And that's not me saying that the MH25 feels cheap, but would you agree the RH25 just is a girthier...
It's more refined. That is, it's to put it as simple as possible, the RH25 is more refined than the MH25.
So who do you think, in your opinion, I'll take the RH back. I love holding the RH25. This is just such an awesome unit. But in your opinion, who do you think should consider the MH25 and who do you think should consider the RH25? I know that there's a lot of overlap and it's not necessarily a dead answer, but what do you think? Give a 30-second rundown.
There's a reasonable price gap. They're both 640 cores. They both will function very well. So obviously some people's budget will dictate which unit you go after. So that's one thing to consider. But then ultimately, if you want to record, no questions asked, you need the RH25. If you want to weapons mount the unit, no questions asked, you want the RH25 over top of the MH.
Yeah.
If you don't care about anything but helmet mounting, and because I have other dedicated weapons mounted thermals, the MH25 is fine for me to dedicate to the helmet. It never comes off. The fact that I have this off right now is weird. This
Shocker.
thing doesn't come off. It stays on that helmet. It's dedicated to the helmet. So.
Yep, and so the other thing to think of is if you're saving some money on the MH25 versus RH, if you decide that you don't need the extra functions of the RH, you can put that money into other things. You could buy the battery pack, you could buy the PVS14 eyepiece, you could get all of those other details so that you can just focus more on running the unit versus playing around with it. But I think it's fair to say that you're not going to go wrong with either one. Would
Nope.
you agree with that? We've put both of these units through their paces. We believe in both of these units. We're excited to add the RL25 to that lineup because
For sure.
that's another one that Ethan's been playing with. Again, we're going to have a video comparing the RL to the RH and showing you guys that may not have a large budget. Like, we understand, we are the same as you. We have to save and plan for all of our units that we are running in the content. We can't just go buy everything that we want. It's all strategic. So there's a lot of you out there that might say, I can't afford an RH25. Well, maybe the MH25 is the answer, but if that's still out of your price range, we do have other options that are on our website that you can check out. We're going to be doing content on those as well. So all in all, two powerhouse units, capable of getting you out into the wilderness, into the darkness, navigating, seeing, identifying, evading, whatever shenanigans you might be getting into. We got the MH25, and then we got the RH on our website. If you want to learn more about them, you can check out our website. All the links are going to be down in the description. Do you have anything else to throw at everybody before we close this video out?
Other than the ML19 and the RL25 coming very shortly to our site, that just gives you even more options. Basically just lower res cores.
Yep.
A little bit more affordable price point.
So guys, if you found the video helpful, hit the subscribe button, check out our website, consider purchasing something from us, and if it doesn't make sense, or you don't like us, maybe go somewhere else. But if you like what we're offering and you like how we present our content, we'd appreciate at least a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, share the video with your friends who are getting into thermal. Catch you guys in the next one.